What I wanted us to do first is to actually just do a little visualization to look at what we'll be trying to accomplish today and nesting some of the things that we've learned in previous sessions into the knowledge of what we're going to be gaining today and working on today. So for that, I want you to actually, everybody, if you can close your eyes, and I'd like you to picture yourself in some form of a theater. And this is a large theater. It has balconies. And I want you to place yourself onto one of these balconies. You're looking out over the balcony, and you can see that there is a sequence of four different like areas all below. So there's a series of steps with four sections. There's a white section, a yellow section, a green section, and a blue section. And there's four of these different levels. Now, what we learned in our first session was before you even came into the theater, when you were getting your ticket stub ready, that was your emotional preparation to actually do motivational interviewing. That was you before you even came into the theater. You're walking in with somebody into the theater, and that is the listening. You're listening, you're preparing to actually go through something. And then at that point in time, you can start to use utterances that are based on what you heard from the person say. And when you are prepared to say those utterances, then there's people that are actually just reaching the very, very first step at the bottom of that white section of seats and that white section of stairs. So up on this balcony view, you're seeing people at that first set of steps, and that is going to be the first process. As these conversations are happening, then we'll go through an engagement process, really connecting, using utterances that are going to connect us and help us to feel like we know each other and to feel that we have a trusting interaction. By the time we get through with that, we'll have reached the end of the white section of steps and we'll be on to the second section, the yellow section. This section is called focusing. With this, we are first going to start talking about what is our change goal? What is the goal of this conversation? And we're going to come together with the person we're speaking with to establish what that goal is for the other person and kind of make sure that we both have the same goal. Looking at what that goal is and what is the goal of this conversation. By the time we reach the end of that second section, we reach the beginning of the green section, the third section. And this is the evoking section. In this section, we're going to learn all about how our audience feels about this change target, about this goal that we've talked about. And then we progress on through this third section until we reach the fourth section, the final section, and this is the blue section. And here in the blue section, we have reached the planning section. When we get up to this cusp of a step, we have to seek permission to go up here. Is our audience willing to take the step with us to start a plan in this change target? If our audience gives us permission, then we'll work on this with them, collaborating with them to help them to discover the plan that best works for them around the change target. Then we're going to be exploring all of the plan. All of the seats in the entire blue section are the different opportunities and directions that our audience might take their plan. We can see them, and only one of those chairs is the plan that we would take. But they might take any one of those chairs to be the plan that they want to go with. So we will help them to find the chair that's right for them and not worry about the chair that we would go down if we were them. Now I'd like you to open your eyes again. So that is our brief synopsis of the four processes. So I'm going to show you a picture now in one sec. What we're working on today. These are the four processes that we were just looking at. In each of these four processes, we always have to maintain the emotional alignment that we've discovered in our first session, the listening in our second session, and the utterances that we use in our third session. Those will be consistent throughout. What we're doing today is we're going to be taking those three things and using them to go through a balcony view process, escalating ourselves up further and further towards the change target. And I have a specific line here because there's a very, very special thing that we want to do when we go from evoking to planning. So this line right here, there's something special that we're going to be doing, and I'm going to like share that with you. It's called a transitional statement. So that's really what we're going to be working on today. Is we have 2 hours, and we're going to probably spend just about 10 minutes here in engaging. I've got about 40 minutes worth of stuff for us to focus on with focusing. Then we're going to spend another half an hour on evoking and the transitional statement at the end. We may not have a ton of time to get through planning, maybe just a few brief examples of how we can actually get started in some of these areas, like some of the key questions, as I like to call them. So before I go forward, does anybody want to share any thoughts about this visualization or the concept of the four processes? And if you want to take a moment just to think about that and see if there's any questions before we get started, then I'd love to hear them. And you can also type into the chat if you wish. Okay, so I didn't see any messages, so let's actually just move forward. I would like us to just do a brief activity. We'll just do a bit of a demonstration of the concept of engagement. So which utterance from the utterances that we learned about before are the utterances that we'd like to tone to when we're in the engagement process? Well, reflections are the thing that we really want to go towards. Specifically, we need to make sure that our reflections are genuine and that our tone is really focusing on communicating is a person say. And that is going to be the source of building trust. So what I'd like to do for this is I'd like to use my Volin ask, tell, pass type system. Henrik, would you be willing to participate in a little interaction with me? And then if you'd like to pass, then you are completely welcome to.
It's okay.
Cool. Okay, so what I'd like us to do is let's just have just a conversation about a topic. And I'd like you to just reflect back what you hear me saying, and to just look at me with a feeling of curiosity, generate that feeling of curiosity towards me, and to just reflect back and help me feel like you are listening to me by demonstrating your listening with a statement that demonstrates that. So I'm going to choose a topic. I'm going to choose the topic of reading science fiction. So I'm actually reading a book for the third time, actually. Um, it's called The Rise of Endymion. It's actually the end of a series.
Hmm. So why? So why do you think you like it so much that you're reading it the third time?
Well, so I read it one time. Uh, the first time I got it off of a list of like top science fiction novels, series, whatever. And then I read it a second time. Like I do this thing like where I'll like read to my husband to help him fall asleep. Uh, and but then I was getting so wrapped into the story and he would always fall asleep, so I ended up like reading ahead of him and reading it a full second time, but I still have to like help him fall asleep, so now I'm reading it a third time, but this time I'm just reading it to him, and I don't have that urge to like continuously read ahead because I just did that.
Okay, but do you discover new things in the plot or in the? I mean, was it a long time since you read it the second time? Now you're reading it the third time. Do
Well,
you
the
still
the
discover?
second time was just like last week,
Oh,
because and then the third time is just, like I'm still like my husband's just like I read to him in like sections this big, and then I read like this big section myself, so I just like advanced past him. So yeah. Okay, so let's actually take a pause. So in this instance, let's actually observe a few of the things that happened. Um, okay, so you asked open-ended, curiosity-based questions. So I was able to feel some form of engagement. Um, there was a few things when we put somebody on the spot, like in this example, you were put on the spot and you graciously accepted being a volun as told type thing. Um, so it can be difficult to actually listen accurately and just channel all of your effort into just a reflection statement. So reflective statement would not end in a question, and it could actually further engage me. So if you noticed on the third time, I kind of repeated the same thing. Like, so my second utterance, I said something about how like, oh, I'm on the third time, and I kind of explained it. And then you asked a question, and then I kind of explained it again. So I didn't actually build up to another step, so to speak. So if I was like ascending stairs, that question didn't help me to go up to a new stair of content. So if each step in a staircase is new content, that second and third thing that I said, the third thing didn't bring me up to a new step. I was talking about the same thing. And that's largely because of the question. So I didn't feel as heard. So I ended up feeling like I naturally had to kind of like represent the idea because it felt like you didn't understand it as well as I was hoping that you would have. So that's where a complex reflection can be very, very beneficial. It can communicate that deep understanding, and it can allow our audience to continue to progress up steps. So complex reflection in this scenario might have been something like, um, so uh, it sounds like it's good enough of a story for you to read multiple times, but really this third read through is really more just not even about like your own enjoyment, but you sharing the joy and the experience of the story with your husband. Okay, so that would have been a reflective statement. It goes a little bit deeper than what I said, but it communicates that you were listening. It communicates your deep understanding. And what that does is it makes me feel like, wow, Henrik really cares about me. Henrik cares so much that he didn't bring himself in at all. He was just demonstrating complete understanding of what I was saying, or his own interpreted understanding of what I was saying. And he values what I say. And so that is my sort of like number one go to for creating engagement. If you'd like, we can actually do another trial run if somebody else wants to give it a go, or we can move on to focusing. Just give me a little bit of in the chat, let's type in a E if you want more on engagement and to see more of these examples, or F if you'd like us to move on to focusing. So let's see an E or an F. Okay, so right now, by a preponderance of people in the chat, we see more E's. So let's do another round. Um, so um, would you like to see me do an engagement opportunity, or would you like somebody else to have another example in trying with me? So if you want to, we're just going to go full on democracy here. So if you want to see Vince do the engagement, then type a V. Or if you want to see oh, geez, I was going to say volunteer, but that's a V as well. um, so if you want to see a participant do the, then type a P. So V if you want me to do the engagement, or P if you want to see a participant. Ooh, it's a tie. Ooh, neato. Ooh, tilting in favor of participant. Yay. I like that better. I'm actually happy about that. Okay, so let's actually ask a new participant. Let's ask uh, Liette. Would you be willing to volunteer as the participant to come forward and interview me?
Sure. I guess that's me, right?
Yes.
I'm Isabel. Is my surname. Yes.
Oh, Isabel. Okay, thank
Yeah, that's okay.
you. Yes. So what I'd like you to do right now is actually just maybe shake it out a little bit. Give yourself a minute to just channel that feeling of curiosity and just direct all of your energy towards listening, because it's very, very difficult to find a complex reflection. If you've got, oh my God, I'm at the, that can be really difficult. So the way to overcome that is just put all of your focus right onto me.
Okay.
And while you're there, I'm going to spend a minute just looking in my house and find something that I want to talk about. Okay, I have my thing that I would like to talk about. I'm going to actually talk about this thing called, it's like a knick-knack. It's called a homegrown, and it's like, there's like knickknacks or something in my house, and they're called homegrown. So I'm going to show you. They're like these little animals that are like in the shape of like different vegetables. So this is like a cauliflower shape.
I see that. So there are decorative items, and are they made of vegetables or just looking like it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of, well, there's some fruit too. I mean, this is a pineapple total.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a little bit delicate, but this is a garlic geese, and it looks like, I mean, like in good geese form, the geese were very violent. So I like to think that the one goose like bit off the other goose's head. Yikes. You didn't like that garlic, yikes. So anyway, that one broke, but I still like it. It's a garlic goose now instead of garlic geese.
So I see you have several of them, and you refer to them as knickknacks. So I guess these are decorative items in your house, and they bring you joy, and even you tell yourself story about it. So it's really nice.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And one of the things that I actually like about them is like I actually got them from this store that my sister used to work at. And like each of them only costs like $5, $6 or something. So I didn't feel like I was breaking the bank to get something. And it's like the only knickknacks that I've ever really bought or owned in my whole life. So I guess it's special in that regards.
Okay. So they are special to you because there you shopped them, you bought them at your sister's store, or because they bring you joy seeing them in your house like you do.
Okay, so let's actually take Okay, so we definitely got reflections there. And, you know, let's do a round of applause for both Henrik and Isabel for volunteering for us. So now these are reflections. So you had some complex reflections, and you had some simple reflections. So like some of your reflections earlier on, so I think you asked, if I remember correctly, and we can watch it back at some point in time later, but it seemed like it was question, complex reflection, simple reflection. Is that kind of what other people were hearing? I mean, you were able to observe, your accuracy might be higher than mine. Does that kind of sound like what we were hearing now? I'm getting some thumbs up. Okay, a few head nods. Okay, so the question just caused me to kind of like, just go over a few more things. The complex reflection drew out a little bit, a little bit more, and caused me to build up on the story, which is I didn't have to repeat the same part of the story. I went on to a different part of the story, exploring about where I got them and some of the why that I got them. Then in the simple reflection at the end, it was just, you could tell that you're like reaching a point where you're like, well, I'm not sure that I have like a deep insight to share, but like, so you just kind of like repeated more than just like changed a few of the words, but said more of the same type of thing. So that's what we call the simple reflection. So the things that are really, really good at engagement are the complex reflections. So the second utterance that you did was the one that we want to try and focus on when we do the engagement process, because that's going to be the thing that helps us to ascend the stairs most quickly. Simple reflection early on can actually be a little bit of a danger. I'd like to share a little bit of what that danger is. And you probably all experienced this at different times. If you hear a simple reflection before the engagement process is complete, then sometimes a simple reflection can come through as questioning. Like you're questioning the accuracy of what's happened, or like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. Because it's just a simple restatement. It's like, I like to drink water. You like to drink water. And it's just like, oh, well, do you think that I don't like to drink water? And it kind of goes, it feels a little bit like, well, are you questioning it? It doesn't definitely feel like a question, but there's a question of, is that a question? Are you questioning me? So there, I can see you feeling a little bit of that. So whenever possible, it is actually better to go deeper in. And maybe just one other little thing that we can do is we can also look at a lot of different places. And I don't know if we actually got deep enough into this in our utterances practice last session, but we can reflect back in a complex reflection more than just what was said. We can use a complex reflection to talk about the emotion that we anticipate, or kind of use our insight to guess what the feeling is for the other person. We can use a complex reflection to kind of to somehow intuit the meaning of this thing. So let's do two examples for each of these. So like, let's say the intuited meaning. It seems like that, I mean, of all the knickknacks you could have chosen to show me, you chose to show me that one. So it seems like those might be the most important knickknacks to you that you have. So I didn't say that, but you're intuiting deeper the importance of blank. Because generally people tend towards, communicating about something that's more important. That's why it's the first idea that comes up that they want to talk about. Now, what about the emotional value? You could say, so these things are quirky. So like, they're kind of like unusual, quirky, but also cute. So there's something in there that maybe they seem like they are a reflection of you somehow, like you are able to connect with them because they're kind of quirky and that's how you think of yourself. And it's like, oh yeah, it's wow, okay, that's exactly right, and so um, then you can kind of look at some of the emotional examples of how you could kind of do a complex reflection there. And there was quirkiness on view. I mean, look at what I said about the geese. Like, if that's not quirkiness, then what's quirkiness? Like most people would have tossed it, and I instead retold the story. So, okay, so I think that might be enough practice for engagement because I don't want us to actually lose the thread of some of our time to do other things. I'm going to check the chat before we carry on. All right, so let us actually carry on with our next process, which is our focusing. So let's actually take a look at where we're at. We just went through engaging, and now we're going to actually look at this focusing process. We're going up to the second flight of stairs. We've engaged, and as we leave the engaging process, we've developed a trusting connection with our audience. We can't ever lose that, and we have to keep engaging all throughout. If we stop engaging, then we're not going to be able to keep advancing to additional levels and additional processes. So we keep the engaging and we keep that while starting our next process, which is focusing. So in the focusing, in a didactic way, what are we doing? Ultimately, we are discovering this concept, this change target. And we're saying, okay, so we've got this change target, and we're coming alongside our audience to explore what change target are we going to be talking about today. So in motivational interviewing, in order to really do a motivational interview full through, you have to have a change target. Without a change target, it gets very confused. How are we supposed to know which change talk, which type of things do we want to reflect back if we don't know what the change target is? How are we supposed to know what ambivalence we're trying to resolve with the person if we don't know which direction we're going? So we need to know which direction we're going. So generally speaking, we bring somewhat of a change target with us. I like to think of it more as sort of like a change direction. And during focusing, we're going to try to establish in that change direction, what might our participant, the person we're communicating with, what are they willing to come along the ride for with us? And then we kind of come together and establish, okay, yes, we want to do this together. So for this, I want us to actually do an activity. We are not gonna record this, but you don't have to worry about turning off the recording because we're going to go to breakout rooms. So if anybody is watching this after we have it, then you'll be able to repeat this activity, but just to repeat it with one other person. So what I'd like everybody to do right now is I want you to think about a major challenge in your life, but also something that you, if you can be vulnerable with it and bring it up with one other person, it will not be recorded, you're going to be paired with as we go through. So think about something that is a major challenge, maybe even one of the biggest challenges that you face in your life right now. So take a minute to kind of think about what that might be. And I'd like you to jot that down on a sheet of paper.
Yeah, just a question, is it okay if the challenge has already been over? Or or does it need to be a challenge right now?
I think a challenge right now might be better.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, so if you don't quite have something yet, that's fine, because we're gonna do this next step and there'll still be a little time for you to catch up here. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to um, think about this challenge and let it take up more of your brain space. And I want you, as it fills up your brain, let the ideas and the challenges and the aspects of the things that make this thing so hard, I want you to look around at different objects in your visual view. And I want you to embody some of those objects with the aspects that make this thing so challenging. So, like, I've got this plate here. This plate could be one aspect of the thing of my challenge. I've got this highlighter. This highlighter could be another. It highlights the risk. So however you want to metaphorically associate them, it's up to you. So I want you to find at least 3 objects, but no more than 5. So 3 to 5 objects around you, and get those different objects to represent different aspects or sub challenges or the things that make this thing so hard for you, and imbue the meaning into those objects. You don't have to do a full throttle thing, even if it's just the start of an idea. Jotting down the object name on your sheet of paper is probably the most important part. So 3 to 5 objects, and just jot the names of those objects down underneath. Okay, so it looks like we're closing in. So what we're going to do now that this was our preparation for our exercise. So we are going to do back and forth. We're going to actually set up the breakout rooms for a full 18 minutes. We're going to need a good chunk of time to be able to go through this, to really explore it. So try to give yourself 8-9 minutes. But realistically, if you find yourself like on your first go, like ending at 6 or something, that's totally fine to end, because odds are somebody in your group is going to need more time. So if one of you needs less, that's totally fine. Even 18 minutes is a bit of a crunch. And what we're going to be doing when we go there is we're going to be exploring this challenging concept and the different aspects that make it very hard. And then we're going to inquire with our person. We're going to ask them to, decide for themselves which is the aspect that they most need to focus on. If they were to address this challenge in a new way, or start addressing it a bit more actively, which one of those things that they've broken it down into do they want to focus on? So basically, we're doing a few different steps of focusing. We're looking at the overarching focus, and then we're helping to kind of narrow down the focus. So we've got multiple steps of focusing that we're trying to do with our ally here. So any questions before we get started and give this a go? I'm just going to wait a few seconds for people to type or indicate to me that they want a question. Yes, James.
So I just want to be clear about what we're doing in this exercise. We're just having the same sort of dialogue that we've modeled, but we're going to take it in turns to talk about the issue that preoccupies us, and we're going to use these objects as ways of describing aspects of the problem
Yes, well, it's
broadly.
our job as the interviewer to draw out and help our ally, our partner, to explore the meaning of some of these like objects and how they represent the bigger challenge.
Okay.
And ultimately, our job as the interviewer is to help our ally to focus in on what is the real meat and bones of their challenge. So it's our duty as the interviewer to help them discover what is at the heart of their challenge. And when we do that, then to let it draw to a close. So we're not going to explore it. We're not going to start evoking around it necessarily. We're just going to try and evoke enough just to locate the heart of it. And the types of statements that we're using are all of the, the emotional preparation of listening and the utterances that we've learned up to this point. So yes, we're doing our best job to just focus in. Okay, so let's actually get started. I'm going to turn my video and my microphone off, and I will be bouncing around from room to room. So if I bounce into your room, pay no heed to the man behind the curtain. I'm just observing just because I want to see how the activity is working for different people. Yeah, right? So so that was our experience of focusing. So if we want, what I'm going to do is give a plus sign if you want to spend a little bit of time debriefing and talking about this experience, or give a minus sign if you want us to move on to our next process, evoking. I see a minus there in chat, in the Nigel. Okay, I see you, Catherine. Okay, so we've got literally a half and half. So let's try to focus on sort of a bit of a briefer debrief, and then we'll move on to our evoking. So what I'd like, I'm going to debrief in this style, which is I'm going to just share two different questions. And we're going to take a couple different comments from, let's say, 3 to 4 people instead of from everybody. So our debrief question number 1 is, or debrief thought is, what was that experience like for me? What did I gain from that experience? And our debrief thought number 2 is, it seemed like I didn't really do that very well. I don't think blank went very well. So looking at something that didn't work for you is an opportunity for everybody in the entire room and ourselves to learn. And it's also an opportunity for me to learn as a trainer. So those are our 2 questions, which is, what was that like for me? Or 2, this blank thing didn't seem to work out for me, and maybe I don't know what was going on there. Do we have any people who would like to volunteer to share their experience on either topic 1 or topic 2? Christian, I see that you're unmuted. Were you wanting to volunteer?
No, but I'm happy to. That was not the reason why I was unmuted. And I must say that I have a very positive feeling about our conversations, and there's not a specific issue that it worked, and that's that was nice to see that that really when I was writing down the stuff, it was like, what are we going to do with it? But yeah, it worked out very, very nice.
So this is something that actually we get a lot of. I actually had a conversation with Bill Miller, who's like the founder of, you know, motivational interviewing type of a thing. And I remember writing him an email, and I just said, oh, it just feels so nice to actually just do this motivational interviewing. It just feels so good. And he was actually talking about, well, it's actually based on some of where motivational interviewing came from is a psychologist by the name of Carl Rogers. And he had this theory called universal positive regard, which is just believing in the other person to make the right decision for themselves, whatever that decision may be. And when you have that sort of positive view towards somebody, it affects us, it affects how we feel. So when you feel like, wow, this motivational interviewing feels good, it's not like a fake or false emotion, it's real. And it's a real bonding experience that we're having with the person. So that's one of the reasons that I actually love motivational interviewing as much as I do, is because of that positive feeling. Because normally when we talk about environmental communications, I mean, like the traditional way to communicate about these things is terrorize people with science and logic until we, you know, demand that they change. But then we don't feel good. We feel like crap because we're thinking about Dhaka being flooded and, you know, 1 million refugees. And that doesn't feel good. Nobody is feeling good about that. So then, big surprise, our audience also doesn't feel good. So being able to use these approaches can be really, really positive. Did anybody else here? I'll just, is anybody else wanting to volunteer or share something that they thought might be a good experience? Ooh, Wolfram, yes.
So I have an experience and a question. So my experience was that I learned something about my challenge, even though we had only 6 minutes. And I did not think that was possible, but because the other person asked me so good questions, I actually learned something about my challenge. But it required me to step back because I was fully prepared to just like talk. Like, I mean, obviously I didn't want to do this in this exercise, but I could have just like talked for 6 minutes about my challenge. And so I only felt good and learned something because I also took part in the motivational interviewing. So my question is, how to get the other person to actually take part in the journey and to not just like tell you constantly about what they are thinking, because that was the key for me to get something out, was to step back and stop talking.
Yes. So, well, there's a couple different things that I can say. So first and foremost, part of the reason that you were able to step back and kind of slow it down was because your partner engaged you. Okay. So you wanting to really participate in the experience was an emotional need that you had based on sort of your engagement with the workshop with your partner. So that is why the engagement process has to come before focusing. If we try to focus without engagement, our focusing attempt will fail. If you try to you can't skip engagement. Focusing does not work if you skip engagement. So that is the first answer. And let's see here. What else was I had another thing and I sort of jotted it down because I knew I was going to forget what my other idea was. I had another, second part to my answer, but yep, it's drifted. I'm not sure it's coming back.
Vince,
oh, yes, please.
Are you saying that we've got to engage on a personal issue with the MP or whatever before we focus on the point of the lobbying matter.
Not a personal issue. So not a personal issue per se, but on a human level. We need to engage them on a human level, and we need them to know that we see them as a valuable human being. So that's what we're really, when we reach the end of our engagement, then our audience, our MP, let's say, our parliament minister, they are feeling valued by us. They are feeling like they are seen as a person. Like, because I mean, a lot of people might come to, their minister, and they're looking at their minister like a piece of meat. Like, what are you going to do for me? I want this, I want that. And if we look at them in a human way and we say, I understand that, yes, you're in a situation where parliamentary size, for, all around the world hasn't really increased in 100 years. And you now have, 4 to 8 times more constituents to represent than the people 100 years ago had to represent. And I can't even imagine what that must be like, trying to represent that many people. Is it even possible? Like, holy cow, that's a hard job. So just seeing somebody on a human level, if we can go in with something like that, then we can help them to know that they are like understood, that we understand that this is a difficult job. And they're representing people that have very, very different points of view in our polarized society. It's like, oh yeah, I have to represent the conservative and liberal people in my writing. It's like, how do I do that? I still am representing the people who didn't elect me. How do I do that? That's a very difficult question to answer. So, and I mean, most of the people in the room probably wouldn't want that job. I wouldn't want that job. I couldn't do that job. It sounds terrible. So, so yeah, so just bringing that in and just connecting with them on that human level.
Great, thanks.
So let's see here. So why don't we actually now refocus on the process of evoking? So we've exited our process of focusing, and we've come alongside, we've explored, and there's a clear version of where we want to go. So there's this concept I talked about before of like a change direction, and then there's a change target. Now, oftentimes, if we come in with that change target, like let's say, picture like a bullseye, like or a dartboard. Okay, so like the change target might be the bullseye. Then the change direction is the dartboard. And then the dartboard is hanging on a wall. Okay, so at any given point in time, we're facing the wall, looking at the dartboard and aiming for the bullseye. But ultimately, there's always micro shifts that happen. We might have thought that we were supposed to be shooting for the bullseye, but actually we won't. They wanted to go for the 777 on the right-hand side, the one that's closest to the bullseye. That's actually, I thought it was the bullseye that we wanted, but we really wanted the 777. It's like you don't know that until you actually start to go through the evoking. So as we do this evoking process, we're going to be learning all about what I like to refer to as the lay of the land around this target. Okay, so if the target is the bullseye, then we're learning about all of the surrounding area. Or let's say the target turns out to be the 20. Maybe we would need to figure out that entire stripe of the 20. What's all there? What's surrounding this? What are the numbers on the other side? So hopefully everyone's played Doubts before. Otherwise, that metaphor wouldn't work very well. Okay, so what I want us to do before we do our next exercise, I want us to actually just do a bit of a visualization. So what I want you to do is I want you to picture yourself in a large open field. So close your eyes and place yourself in the middle of a large grassy open field. You're sitting on top of a blanket that you've put there, and it's going to be like a little picnic here. You're having a picnic with the person that you are communicating with. They've told you about their change target. But at this point in time, you take into your heart right now that you don't know anything about their change target. You don't really know what it is, why that change target. You've narrowed it down from a direction to a target, but you still don't know why that. What is all surrounding that? What is the situation describing that? So as you think about all of those things, you're looking out around you, and what you thought was actually a grassy field actually isn't. When you look off in one direction, you see a children's playground. You also see, oh, there's a school there. There's a school connected to that playground. You got that because you drew out more thoughts and feelings. You evoked from them to realize that that was there. Then you look in another direction to the north. To the north, you see a public swimming pool. I didn't know that was there before. I just evoked that and I just discovered that was there. You look off to the east. There's a large building. It's a multi-residential building. There's balconies and chairs and people out on the balcony. You didn't know that was there. You look out to the south, and the south is still just this grassy field. And you think to yourself, how will I discover this? I need to use my curiosity to unpack and understand what's there. Only by understanding all of the situation and elements surrounding this change target could I possibly help this person that I'm interacting with to be able to build a plan for how they're going to move forward. They need to be able to come out and share all of their circumstances, and for me to be a good ally to help to lead them through all of those, I need to be able to know those circumstances so together we can work out, if they decide to make a plan, what that plan might look like, only after we've discovered all of these surrounding areas around them. So let's come back into the room. So that is our process of evoking. We're using a lot of key questions to draw out different things of where they're at. So I'm going to actually go didactic for a moment here, and I'm going to give you a few key questions that are like wonderful questions to start an evocation process. Give me a second. I want to actually. Okay, so one key question is based on confidence. So the key question is, how confident are you in your ability to pass a carbon fee and dividend? Okay, so let's say, we don't know what the change target is because we're kind of passing the change target. So we've already agreed on the change target. So if that's the change target, then we're bringing that in here. So how confident are you in your ability to sway some of your colleagues in the parliament to sign on to a carbon fee and dividend policy on like a 1 to 10, let's say? Okay, so what are we doing in this question? So we're asking them to just put themselves on a 1 to 10 for their confidence around taking action on the change target. Okay, so that's what we're doing. And then we follow this up, and this is the critical moment. So why did you choose 6, or whatever number they chose, instead of a 1 or a 2? Or, you know, you could choose a set of numbers that are underneath their number. So if they chose a 6, so why did you choose a 6 instead of a 3 or a 4? So, and I'll say that one more time so everyone can jot that down. So why did you choose a 6 instead of a 3 or a 4? Okay, so this is a key question for a very specific reason. The answer to this question is going to be the thing that makes them confident. That's what we're doing. We're specifically asking a question where we know the answer is going to be something that we love to refer to as change talk. The more change talk, the more things that they say that are correlated with them feeling confident or powerful or capable or motivated or feel like a reason, all of those things are change talk. Whenever we draw those types of things, they become more likely, more capable, more confident to be able to do the things in the direction of the change target. So we ask that knowing that we're going to get an answer of what makes them feel confident. So we need to be ready with our listening because the change talk is coming and we need to be ready to reflect it. We definitely can't miss a reflection after a question like this. And after we reflect it, all of that, like this question, it's going to give us all that stuff to the north. And when we reflect it, they're going to actually fill in the details. Kind of like when we looked to the west, we saw a playground. Then we reflected and we realized that that playground was connected to a school. We're going to get the school because of the reflection. So we're going to get more because of the reflection. Reflections are our best way to draw out more content, better than questions. We don't have no questions. We just use more reflections than questions. Okay, so I'm thinking about using an example. So we had a suite of different examples. I'm wondering if for this one, we should actually go with the process of bringing one of the focus stories that we were just exploring together as a group into the main session to explore and kind of have an observational learning around the concept of evoking. So is that something that we'd like to do, which is to have like a live one-on-one and then do some observational learning around that? Give me a plus sign if you like the idea of that activity, or a minus sign if you want to go with something else. Okay, so I see a number of positives, and neutral usually means kind of like, okay, sure, I'm ambivalent, so let's go with that. Okay, so what I think is the best situation, since we already specifically stated that we're not going to have this on the recordings, I'm going to use my own example as the thing that will be on the recording then. So then we can use this as a recording, and we can share this out. Isabel, do you mind being the volunteer, because Isabel was actually the person who went with me, and actually evoking more about my own story?
Sure.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in everybody about where we were. So the focus target, or do you want to actually tell people where we were, Isabel?
I can try.
Well, why don't you try, and then I'll just fill in if I feel like we need more.
Okay, so we speak about your challenge, right?
Yes, my challenge.
Yes. So what I perceive is that you struggle to retain your emotional curiosity when you're in a confrontational environment, and you want to stay in the motivational interviewing band of emotion when the people you're talking to are confronting, and not switch to their way of and confront them, and remain calm and available.
Yes. Yeah. So, and so I guess the only thing that I'll add is I will actually say that one of the examples that we use, just to kind of give everybody the frame of mind of what I was talking about. Sometimes when I see environmentalists communicate in a confrontational way, then it makes me, I can have moments of weakness where I leave the MI band of emotions, and I can start confronting confrontational environmentalists. Specifically, vegans kind of get me going. And I know that not all vegans aren't like that. And in fact, less are like that. And this is a very vocal minority, but they have a triggering effect on me, and they can get me triggered. I can start off trying to help them, but then before long, I end up confronting them. I just did this. It was an example because I did it yesterday. So there you go. So if you ever leave the MI band of emotions when you're not supposed to, oh no, I still do it. It's a work in progress. So we left off with the focus target for me being to explore not placing the blame on other people for me getting kind of triggered, and looking more at myself and what I need to do myself, because they're not going to be changing right now. And so if I'm not going to get triggered, then I need to figure out how to not get triggered myself, regardless of whatever they're doing. So yeah, would you like to sort of help me explore the lay of the land around this, Isabel? You ready?
Yes.
Cool.
I think it could be interesting to maybe search patterns on why and when you get triggered more specifically.
Yeah. Well, and maybe what I could do is I could tell the story about the example that I just did yesterday.
Yeah.
So I've had problems being on social media because social media, there's like a lot of news on social media. There's the people that are in my network. And then lo and behold, I see people say horrible things, or I see terrible news, or I see just depressing news. I like to refer to it as the amygdala news. So I quit Facebook for good. I tried to quit Twitter for good, but it's like it just rubber bands me back in from time to time, even though like I know it's no good for me, and it's very triggering as a location. And I recently tried to like redirect my attention towards LinkedIn and say, well, maybe on LinkedIn I could be like a bit more professional or something, or I don't know, maybe it'll be like, maybe people will be like less, triggering to me or something. So I've been using LinkedIn, and that's where I saw it was a message, a post, and reshared, and it ended up on my wall. It was a picture where it says, "Are you a heel?" And then there was 9 pictures of like different animals, and then it said like how long they're raised until they are basically like butchered for their meat, and then what is their expected lifespan. And then there was like, like a time, like a clock sort of infographic that went around, which is like at what point in their expected lifespan we actually helping this animal for its meat. So basically, of course, all of these clocks are like somewhere, you know, around like, you know, like 12:03, or, you know, like, you know, like they're like, you know, like not even one, you know, and some of them like at the highest, it's like 2 o'clock, right? So um, ultimately this message is very confrontational. It's like, it's calling people baby eaters, and it's just sort of like, you know, it's just, you know, triggering to me, like specifically because I know that what the vegan person is trying to do is like trying to help, but I also know that they're actually like not helping at all. So like I talked about MI on my post, and then I ended up giving examples of communications that wouldn't be so confrontational. But at the end, I ruined the entire thing that I shared by saying, so by sharing this, the person who's a baby eater is actually you, like you're the baby eater. And I was like, okay, so that was straight up confrontation. And I just literally made that vegan person more confrontational. So actually, by calling them a baby eater, I was the biggest baby eater of them all. So I was just sort of like, oh crap, you know?
So what I
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, what I gather is that at the beginning you may have thought that it was due to the type of social media you were using, but in the end you're now using LinkedIn, and you see that you still encounter this issue of getting triggered by confrontational communication. So maybe that's not the way we should look into.
Yeah, putting them on social media that's true. It's not accurate. That's not where I can't find my solution in one platform or another. Like, because I'll be confrontational if I get triggered, regardless of the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I hear is that you often encounter this stronger emotions with vegan communication, and that it is the fact that it is not an effective way to communicate that is triggering you. That in fact, it's not the message, but the way it is delivered. That
it's, you know, it's not them. It's me though. It's I get on a high horse. Like that's what it is. Like when I stop and I look at myself, you know, like I get on a high horse about like the importance of motivational interviewing, and you know, my role as a trainer and like my need to help them to not be confrontational, and then I get swept away in my need to help them, like my need, like, and that I think that there might be like that might actually be closer to the core of what my challenge is, which is like I have a need to help them to stop being confrontational. And then it kind of somehow mixes up with this sort of like the importance of MI. And I know it's important. So it's like I kind of need to go into this saying MI is not important. And if I can say to myself, maybe like MI is not important, then, you know, maybe it will help me to like go into that conversation to like just be like even keel. So maybe there's something there, but then I'm also thinking about like just also like identifying and taking a pause. Because like I'll see it, and if I go straight into sort of like teacher mode, then teacher mode is going to lead me down a path that's not where I want to go, because they haven't elected to come to one of my workshops or something like that. So they're not my student. So what am I going to teach them? Like, I can't teach somebody who hasn't said, I want to learn. So then maybe I have to, realize that this isn't somebody who is, autonomously selected and chosen to be a loner. And maybe that kind of is there's something there.
Yes, I think
okay, so why don't we actually take a pause now?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
if you want to finish.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that the email is not important because it's maybe a bit strong. What I feel is that you talked about the teacher mode, and I think that you know of a better way to communicate, and you're frustrated that they don't, or that they don't want to use it. And in fact, you feel powerless in the fact to save people, the world, from a bad communication. And maybe there is some work about acceptance of people not wanting to better communicate.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think that this right here, this was, really, it was a brilliant example of evoking. Like, you just made space, you reflected things back, and you just opened up the lay of the land, and you let me explore what it was like. You didn't have to guide all that much, because largely I kind of guide myself. And some people will be like that. With some people, we need to guide a little bit more, but you gave enough guidance. And this right here sets the stage for the transitional statement. And the transitional statement is when we feel we've got enough to kind of like move forward. When do we know we have enough to move forward to that fourth process, to that planning process? I can't tell you when you're going to be there, because each situation will be different. You have to check inside your gut, and you have to say, is this person, have they explored, have we gone through what is surrounding this issue for them? Personally, I can say that, like, I feel in this exploration, we've gone through what's at the heart of the issue and what is surrounding it. We talked about, like, oh, is it the platform? And then you gave that incredible reflection, which is, you're seeing that, like, the platform is not where you need to look. And it was just sort of like, it was very direct. It was a complex reflection because I didn't say that. And it also helped me to say, that's not where I need to go. Let's look over here. It was a brilliant example of how we don't need a question to tone towards something else in this field, in this open field. We can just reflect, like, this isn't where we're going to find our answer. And you reflected that, and then I toned. Because when somebody is like, you realize that this isn't where you're going to find the answer. And it's like, well, then what does somebody do? They tone somewhere else, right? Like, that's just the next logical place we go. And it was brilliant. So ultimately, we discovered like a couple different pathways we could follow to explore for planning. So the transitional statement is a 3-part statement that we ask. Well, it's more of a statement. There is a question at the end, and it is a new direction. So we do actually use this question at the end. And there's 3 parts to it. So let's detail it now. So part 1 is we reflect back and validate points that would challenge us or prevent us from changing. Now, only big points that are like big, hairy obstacles to overcome. In this situation, we probably would be able to kind of not use step 1 at all, because I didn't actually communicate any big challenges that I felt so strongly that I would have to overcome before I could succeed. So step one can be skipped. So step one is effectively we're reflecting back what we refer to as the sustained talk. All of the things that would be like reasons why they aren't going to make a change. But we only want giant, big, hairy, like kind of almost like unavoidable things where we have to validate it. But in this situation, we don't even need one because I didn't express that level of visceral challenge with any of my sort of sustained talk of things that I have to overcome to succeed. So the second step is to reflect back my reasons for change, my biggest reasons for change. So in this case, we want a max of 4, because if you go over 4, then people will lose the first one by the time you get, let's say you did 5, the first thing that you mentioned would be completely lost to their brain by the time you got to number 5. So at the most 4, probably actually even better to just use 2 or 3. And you end with the one that's most strong. And then the third step is to say, so what's next for you? There's 1,000,001 different ways to say that third step. So what's next for you on this? So what's next? So what do you think is next for you on this, challenge? Generally speaking, it's almost always better to just go briefer. And if you're ever like at a loss and you want to just say, so what's next for you? That's always a good way to end the transitional statement. Now, sometimes I've gotten this question from time to time. People are like, well, are people just going to be like, well, I got to go order a pizza. It's dinner time. Yeah, that's not what happens. Like that, it's like not humanly possible for that to happen, because if you've actually gone through engagement and focusing and evoking, you've been talking about this thing. Nobody's thinking about freaking pizza. Like, it's not gonna, when you say, so what's next for you, people are going to think about what's next for them on the change target. That's why we've done engaging, focusing. So what's next for you on the thing that we've been focusing on in this conversation? But you don't have to say all of that extra long sentence. You don't have to say, so what's next for you on this thing we've been talking about for the past 10 minutes? You can just drop that whole deal, because that just makes the question much, much worse. Okay, so what we could do right now, these 3 steps is the transitional statement. So this is our sort of like template for what the transitional statement is. And what are we transitioning? We're transitioning from evoking and discovering the lay of the land. We're transitioning from that to planning potentially. And that's a big potentially, because there's a number of different answers that we may get from this. If we get a little bit of resistance, that means that our person is not ready. If we don't get resistance, we get like maybe some sort of like low level kind of exploration or commitment about something they might want to do. That's the plan that they're potentially going to walk down or explore. And if we get a little bit of resistance, what we want to do is we want to immediately back off. We need to. If we get resistance, we've been given a gift. So if we can look at that resistance as a gift, if the response to our transitional statement is resistance, if we can look at it as a gift, we can say, oh, okay, so you're not actually ready to, make a change on something like this right now. So, that's maybe for something in the future. So what do you think, like, you will actually look at? So what's interesting is if you follow it up with that type of thing, like backing off from they're not ready to make a change, and then you kind of go in almost with another, like even more supplicating or submissive version of the so what's next for you, then they'll come up with what is next for them. Like that's not a plan. It's usually more like, like, oh, I like maybe I need to like learn a little bit, or I have to think about something. So you could say, so what do you think, you might do next, since you're not really ready to kind of like pursue a change on that right now. And so then it's not actually talking about change. It's maybe just talking about getting ready or contemplating what the future might hold. And so oftentimes you might find a little bit of a plan there, in not in planning what they're going to do, but planning what they might think about in the future. So that might be an option. And usually that second tier down usually gets something. So why don't we actually do a little bit of practice? So we're not going to have a ton of time, well, or any time to go through planning, which is kind of what I expected. We usually can't make it to planning in this, but we can set ourselves on a good train for planning with just taking an example of the transitional statement, which is launching us into a good setup for planning. So what I'd like everybody to do right now, we all heard the example we just did. So I want everybody to write down a transitional statement on the evocation process that Isabel ran with me. So I want you to, do 1, 2, 3. And if you feel confident in skipping one, then skip one. And then, so just jot it down right now on your paper. That's what we're doing. So the example that we're going to be using is the example of me and how and like my focus target that we were just exploring, which was like dealing with confrontation and stuff like that on like social media platforms like LinkedIn or whatever. Okay, so I realize some people are still writing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to vol and ask pass, that whole deal. For anybody who wants to go and give you a chance to just share it. So if I ask you and you do choose to go and not pass, then I want you to just give me the statement. Like you're actually just giving me the statement, just really give it to me. And then I'll do a very brief response so you can see how I responded to your transitional statement. Brigitte, was it? Would you like to go?
I would say you feel that your enthusiasm for motivational interviewing might in some case work against you. Well, indeed, you're not a teacher, and you feel that you don't have sometimes the rights to tell people what to do, and you've got to leave them their autonomy. So I think that's very very true. And then what do you think you can do about that?
Okay, so now I didn't actually have much of a response here because I got hung up on the first, and I always respond exactly how I feel, just so you know what the true response to your statement was. So the first part of your response took the wind out of my sails, and I was distracted by the first part of your response. The thing about like, can you say it again?
You feel that your enthusiasm for motivational interviewing might in some case work against you. Something like that.
Yeah, so that was sustained talk. So that, or at least to me, it felt like that was like kind of step one. And so where we were at, when I heard that, I felt deflated. And it made me feel distracted and less capable of moving forward. Um, and it also distracted my attention, so I wasn't really able to genuinely interact with and hear fully the second part and third part of the statement. So by the time you got to the "so what's next for you," I kind of disengaged a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that, just so you had that
Yeah.
thing. So, and then there's also what I typed in here in chat, which is, so I think that's very true. So if you watch this on playback, whenever we loop in something like that, we always, if at all possible, trying to drop out the I-ness in the statement. And that can usually sneak its way in situations where we have unshownness. So keeping a track on our own sort of feeling of unshownness going forward can help us to kind of just be like, and instead just focusing in on the listening. Of course, it was a very, very difficult situation because we weren't coming on the cusp of just having finished it. So I just wanted to point out that situation of trying to avoid the like I statements.
So I have a very hard time leaving out my own thoughts when I interact with people.
Yes, it's very, that's one of the things, the to overcome that, it's kind of like one of those earlier examples when I talked about like, can you get Lady Gaga unstuck from your head? And of course the answer to that is no, nothing can get Lady Gaga out of your head. So what do you do if Lady Gaga is you know, in your head? What are you supposed to do? And ultimately, I like to think of it as letting myself get distracted by the person that I'm talking to. So if I can just like fully commit to saying, I'm just going to be completely distracted by my listening of the other person. So, but maybe we could actually have a one-on-one session if you want, where we could actually unpack and do some of those things and maybe explore helping
Might
you
be useful. Yeah.
I would love to do that. So, you know, hit me up. I got time this Thursday and Friday.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got like a few more minutes for like maybe another example. Catherine, would you like to, you know, share your transitional statement, or pass is also an option?
I think if someone's being confrontational, I think I would confront them and say, what do you think you're going to achieve by being so offensive? Because like Wolfram said in the chat, it's just part of the course at the moment. And that would make them think, what am I? You know, if they're saying to you, well, I don't believe in climate change, or well, that's, I suppose that more offensive than that. Well,
yeah.
I think, sorry.
No, so what I'm realizing here is I think I've actually dropped you in on an activity that in my need to kind of try to get through and share the transitional statement, I did the teach out for the transitional statement, and then the teach out for the transitional statement came after the process that you were supposed to be doing a transitional statement on, and that became actually a little bit too difficult for your first try on a transitional statement. So it might actually be easier if like watching a replay of Isabel having the conversation, and then right when Isabel is done, you know, having the conversation, to then try and do your transitional statement right then. That might actually be an easier way to actually do that. So that might be an easier way to move that forward. So what I actually want to do, and I realize it's so I'm going to ask everyone to stay maybe for a few minutes so I can actually share two things, which is the homework and an opportunity that I want to extend to everybody. So give me 1 second to just pull that up. Because we don't have any more time to actually debrief the transitional statements, unfortunately. So I'm showing a link in the chat right now. So that is a document for the 4 processes homework. So I'm going to go on screen share real homework is. And I went for the most fun, engaging like homework that I could think of. And I want you to actually be able to experience this homework and have it be literally a joyful experience where this is not even going to necessarily feel like homework at all, but rather feel like something that this is just actually something fun that I am going to have fun doing. So the first one in the engagement is to watch the movie 50 First Dates. So that's a movie with Adam Sandler. So why does he want me to watch an Adam Sandler movie? Well, Drew Barrymore's character has some sort of retrograde amnesia, and that's not me giving a spoiler. You find out in like the first 3 minutes of the movie. And Adam Sandler has to try to engage Drew Barrymore over and over again. And it's sort of like, how did this engagement work? Did it work? Why didn't it work? Did it work? Why did it work? And just looking at Adam Sandler and how he tries to connect with and engage Drew Barrymore, and how is this all working? So that's sort of the practice for engagement, and it's largely there to just help your mind think more deeply about what is the process of engaging and look at the same scenario happening, you know, like 50 times, like 50 First Dates. The focusing is basically taking this idea that we already practiced once and to practice it just by yourself, and then try to actually go through a bit of a motivational interview with yourself. Give yourself the gift of these questions and then answer them, and then give yourself the gift of more evocative questions and try to do a motivational interview with yourself. Then the evoke. So this one is envisioning yourself as a surveying expert, and there's an exploration around there, and specifically using kind of like that whole concept of the interview of like the 5 big questions or like the who, what, when, where, why type of a thing. And then lastly, planning in a situation that is something that nobody, certainly not me or most people here probably will never do. So it's like planning how you will be the lead dancer in like a flash mob. And how you would actually go about planning something like that, and basically thinking and re-envisioning what the planning process is like. So those are the homework assignments, and there's like a little bonus thing if you want to. And so that's the homework, and everyone has 3 weeks. And then what I set up, I wanted to extend an opportunity, which is at this stage in time, people are starting to really get their feet wet in the motivational interviewing process and look at what the motivational interviewing is like across the entire engagement. So I want to offer for everybody to do a one-on-one motivational interview with me, and it would be a recorded engagement. I will process it through this thing called, it's a mighty autocoder that I use, and it will spit out a transcript, and we can actually go through that and actually explore what was your motivational interviewing like. And this is one of the richest ways to take your motivational interviewing from like here to like 60. You know, it's just like from 60, you know, what do they call it, 0 to 60 and 3.5? It's like, there you go, like that's what we're doing here. So it will really accelerate you. So I have times all this Thursday and Friday. So if my request is that people send me times that would work for them, just send me like 3 or 4 different times. If you can send it in your time and EST, just so I know, because otherwise I'll be doing a ton of conversion. So if you can actually communicate both times, but also share my EST, then I would love to do that. And I'm actually trying to make a collection of videos that I can use for training purposes. But realize you're going to be doing the motivational interviewing with me. So that way there won't be any of your like dirty laundry, so to speak, or whatever. Like it won't be any of that. So so that's why I will be the subject. And this is an opportunity for you to learn more on practicing that. Yeah, and if you just type in your time zone, like GMT to EST, if you punch that into Google, it'll give you that. So that concludes this, and I'm an EST. Yes. And so that's homework. That's the offer for the interview. I want to get as many of those because the videos out there. I'm doing like a new course for Mighty Coding, which is the measurement system of how we know motivational interviewing is variable.
I try to use videos out there, but like you can't find videos. It's either people like confronting people, whatever. I'm just like, okay, everybody realizes that's not like what we need to be doing. I need like videos that are sort of like at mid-skill level, which is where you are probably all at right now, which is at a mid-skill level in your journey of learning more motivational interviewing. So these are the types of videos that I need to help not only this cohort, but all of my cohorts to be able to have good examples of where they can see themselves and say, oh, this is a real person at my level. So that's what I would like to do with this video content. So it's, yeah. All right.